So, hello there everyone and welcome, it is Niren here, and today it is time for yet another video looking at FIFA 20. And I know, I already hear the comment section saying, Niren, it is literally the first week of February, are you mental? I realise that, but if we're gonna get stuff onto FIFA 20 and get our opinions heard and put some suggestions forward in the form of a wish list, we're gonna have to do it early, because the game's gonna be pretty much done by May, June time, okay? We've got to say stuff like this now. Now, I've been doing a lot of videos about stuff I would like to see in FIFA 20, career mode speaking, and gameplay-wise as well. But today, we're honing it down to a speciality. We're looking at specifically teams I want to see in FIFA 20. Overall, in career mode, and just generally on kickoff as well. Now, if you go on to enjoy the video, slap a like on it and subscribe if you are new to the channel. It's the big red button under the video, and it massively helps me out. If you've got any other teams or ideas for things you want to see in FIFA 20, then drop them down in the comment section below. But without any further ado, let's get into things. And first of all, we have got the Brazilian national team. I am fed up of looking at Brazil's team and it just has Neymar Jr. in it and a load of random Brazilians, okay? That goes for the Brazilian league as well, neither of which are licensed at the moment, and it's ridiculous. Brazil arguably have one of the greatest footballing histories in the world, and their national team isn't even on the game. In fairness, if you do want to manage them on career mode, I think you can actually add the players into the national team, I assume. I've never actually had a Brazilian national team offer, thinking about it, but I assume if you get that job, you can actually add the real-life players onto the game. However, when you're just playing with them usually, or if you're playing up against Brazil, you're not going to get the licensed team, and for me, that is absolutely ridiculous. I know it might be money-wise, I don't know what the reasons are. I know Konami have the licensing for the Brazilian league, so clearly it can't be so astronomical in price that EA can't afford it, because if Konami can do it, EA can do it as well. They proved that with the Champions League. Number 2, we've got Croatia. And I know this is to do with the astronomical amount that it takes to put Croatia onto the game. I think I spoke about this before with Croatia. The head of their FA is Suka, isn't it? The ex-Croatian, like, legend or something. But apparently he charges a ridiculous amount to put the Croatian, like, rights into the game. The one thing I will say is that Dinamo Zagreb are in EA's game this year, so they must have got the rights for Dinamo Zagreb, so theoretically they could get the rights for the Croatian national team as well. That can't be beyond the realms of possibility. That's what I'm thinking. Generally though, Croatia literally got to the final of the World Cup. How can you not have a team that got to the final of the World Cup on your game? You own the rights to the World Cup. You are FIFA. It is the FIFA World Cup. It can't be that difficult, surely. That is one that has absolutely got to happen this year. I know in previous years people have wanted the Croatian national team on the game, but now it's actually imperative. They literally were in the World Cup final. There's no excuse to not have one of the best teams in the world on the game. The likes of Luka Modric, Ivan Rakitic, Mario Mandzukic. Number 3 is a personal one for myself, Nigeria. We need more African nations on the game, generally speaking. I think at the moment we have South Africa, Cameroon, and the Ivory Coast. I believe those are the only national teams on the game. Obviously, all nationalities are on the game. I get that. You know, you can. It's not that you can't have players from Morocco or Tunisia or the flipping Democratic Republic of Congo on the game, but you don't have the national side. You don't have the kits. You don't have the badge. Nigeria is another one, and Nigeria as a nation has been one of the front runners for African football since literally African football began. No excuse why that team shouldn't be on the game. As well as that, get the flipping kits on the game, although by this point they'll have probably changed the national team kits. You won't get that really cool Nike one that you had on the World Cup DLC. Which reminds me, what if, you know, if you can get them on the World Cup DLC, why can't you actually get them on the game itself? I've never really understood that, but there must be something keeping that from happening, because it happens on a regular basis. Anyway, slight tangent there. Nigeria. We stay in Africa for the next one. We got Ghana, Nigeria's next door neighbors. I mean, I talk about teams doing well at the World Cup. Ghana did incredibly at the 2010 World Cup, and they've still not managed to find their way into FIFA since then, obviously going out, I believe, at the quarterfinals at the literal hands of Uruguay's Luis Suarez. But Ghana, again, long overdue. South Africa are a decent footballing side, but I would say the likes of Ghana and Nigeria are superior to them as far as African football is concerned. It's about about time we therefore had Ghana and Nigeria onto FIFA. Pretty much as simple as that, really. Then the next two continue on a similar trend as well. First of all, we've got Japan, who made the final of the Asia Cup in recent weeks. Unfortunately, they lost at the hands of QATAR 3-1. I've just got to say, I've actually never understood, literally never understood why Japan aren't in FIFA. I actually don't understand at all. They are by far and away the best Asian side, and yet for some reason EA refuses to have them in the game. You've got Saudi Arabia in that sector, you've got India in that sector, you've got China in that sector, yet Japan aren't on the game. How can the best team in Asia not be in the official FIFA game? Having said that, theoretically they're not the best Asian side anymore because they didn't win the Asia Cup. QATAR did, and they're the next team that I want to see on the game as well. If a side can win the Asian Cup, in my opinion, they're good enough to be on FIFA as well. If you're going to have Japan because they're quite a prestigious nation and they're a big nation and they've got a lot of good players, then I think you should have the side that beat them in the Asia Cup final as well. A lot of controversy, I think, around Qatar because they've got a lot of players who traditionally aren't from that nation. They took on a lot of new players who changed allegiance recently. This one as well reminds me of the Brazilian league from earlier. The Qatari league is not too bad, you know, there's some decent players playing over in the Middle East these days. Obviously, some in Saudi Arabia, but slightly more, actually, I would say, in Qatar. I feel like the actual quality of the Qatari league on FIFA would be slightly better than the Saudi Arabian one. Regardless of that, get the national team on the game. Reward them for winning a pretty decent competition, one that actually engulfs an entire continent. We head on back to Europe, though, now, as we focus on the Ukraine. Again, another nation with some very good players, the likes of Yevgen Konoplyanka, the likes of Andrei Yarmolenko as well, who have come to more prestigious leagues recently and done pretty well for themselves. As well as that, there's some really good young players on the game from Ukraine as well. Now they've added Dynamo Kiev and also Shakhtar Donetsk onto the game, there's plenty of really good young Ukrainian players as well. It would be nice to be able to have them available for a national team on career mode. You know, once you've grown the likes of Supriaga or Viktor Zygankov, who plays for Dynamo Kiev, they just kind of go nowhere. There's nothing for them once they reach their potential in career mode. So having them available to a national team would be really, really good. Overall, I would just like to see more. Like, can I just say, there needs to be a lot more national teams on FIFA anyway. Like, there's literally, I think, 50. I want to say there's 50. There's over 200 nations in the world. Come on, we really need some more national teams. I'm not talking about every single one, because there might not be enough players for every single one. There's probably only 100 nations or 120 nations that have 18 players on the game. But for those that do, you've got to have a national team for them. Next up, we've got Senegal at number 8, another African nation, and one that impressed at the World Cup. And they've got some really good players, mainly forwards, I will admit. They all seem to be wingers, all of Senegal's good players, the likes of Sadio Mane, Balde Diao Keita, Mbaye Niang, etc. But they qualified for a World Cup in a continent in which it is pretty difficult to qualify for a World Cup, above the likes of Cameroon, above the likes of the Ivory Coast. You've got them on the game. You've got South Africa on the game, but no Nigeria, no Ghana, no Senegal, who are by far, in my opinion, the 3 front runners for African football. Number 9 might be one that raises some eyebrows, but Tunisia are in the top 30 in the FIFA World's rankings, generally speaking. Again, this is another African side, although North African in this case. Tunisia didn't do a whole amount at the World Cup, I will fully admit that. You know, they challenged England for a little bit, and they were slapped silly by Belgium. But they're not a horrendous team, okay? Tunisia are a decent side in a group they were always never going to get out of. But they've got a good FIFA World's ranking, and that to me shows that in terms of their continent base, they are really a very decent side. And, you know, again, to get to the World Cup out of a continent like Africa is no mean feat. They've got to be a good side. And the final one that we're going to talk about today is South Korea. Now, this interests me because I didn't even realize South Korea weren't in the game. I thought until very recently South Korea were literally in FIFA, but I've scrolled through and they're not in it. And I don't know whether they've been removed now or when they were removed, but they don't have a national team in career mode. You know, you've got a side that's got the likes of Heung-min Son, who's tearing the EPL apart, and you can't even play him in the game. I know they didn't do very well at the Asia Cup, I will admit that, but it happens. You know, big teams do badly sometimes. The Netherlands haven't qualified for a major tournament for a little bit, so it happens sometimes, but that South Korean side is good. They've even got the K-League on the game. It would be very easy to populate a national team for South Korea if they decided to put it in, but again, it seems very odd to not have a nation like that that's got a good set of players. That was going to wrap up the teams that I want to see in FIFA 20 going forward. Let me know what ones I missed down in the comment section below. If you've got any other ideas for things like this that you want to see in FIFA 20, drop it down there too. Whilst you're at it, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and you can also follow me on social media these days too. My Twitter and Insta at @theofficialfng, and links are down below. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a great day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.